The Seven Deadly Sins. It's a show that gets a lot of criticism. But why? Now, before we get into this video, I do want to mention that the amount of support on the last video was unbelievable, and I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed it, and I'm gonna be keeping up these review videos. Now, the first video was more of a recap, and then my review was given at the end, but for this video I'm gonna be voicing my opinion on each character and some of the situations, I guess, that happen, and then giving my overall review in the end. Hi, it's AZ from the future. I completely forgot to mention that I'm choosing these topics off of your comments and your submissions in the polls that I post on Twitter. So if you're not following me on there, I do suggest you head on so you can contribute to I guess the next videos. So next topic will be ReZero, I should probably say, but an overwhelming majority did choose Seven Deadly Sins, which is why we're doing this today. So do let me know what format you guys enjoy more. This format requires a lot less editing, while the first one is more intensive, but I think the first one was more fun to watch. It's up to you guys though, and without further ado, let's get right in. Now, the first main characters we meet are Meliodas, Elizabeth, and Hawke. In the beginning it's really strange because you have this innocent girl who for all intents and purposes seems to be really accepting of what Meliodas does. And then you get this man who's essentially a pervert. We meet Hawke, who comes off as comic relief, but it doesn't make sense because the whole show is comedic in nature. If anything, Hawke comes off as annoying because there's no point in having him around. He just keeps hyping himself up and then does nothing. The author probably added Hawke to the story to be a walking garbage disposal. Now, the first arc of the Seven Deadly Sins was finding the members and clearing their names. We meet Diane, and she immediately comes in as competition for Elizabeth, but that's only her point of view. There's nothing special about her, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Now, Ban is an interesting character because while he seems to be your everyday, cool side character, he actually has a lot of guilt pent up and doesn't know what to do with it. That is, of course, until his girlfriend gets reincarnated, which is pretty convenient. Yeah, I would much prefer she stay dead, and he has an arc dedicated to finding reason to love again. I mean, King took it much better than him, and she's his sister. Anyway, King's next, and he comes off as incredibly strong for his debut episode, and then he stays in the background feed-wise. Of course, he has his moments later on, but they're quite underwhelming, as his power-up is absolutely retarded. He was subconsciously suppressing his own power, and I hate that type of character growth. He's only there as a character to oppose Meliodas after finding out he's a demon, and as Diane's caretaker back in the day. Other than that, King is an absolute waste of potential as a character. Next character we met was Gowther, and boy is he a doozy. He comes off sort of like Sai from Naruto Shippuden, being incredibly cold and apathetic. Though he does try to sympathize with his comrades, he later gives up and becomes quote-unquote evil. Quick side note, the name Gowther can mean moving on from failure and going through a drastic change. Now, his backstory is pretty sad since he was never actually this cold and is revealed to actually be based off his creator's wife. This gesture is important as it is in and of itself a testament that Gowther has loved and can love once again. So he ends up coming back to rejoin the Seven Deadly Sins and reconciling with its members. All in all, decent backstory. Next up is Merlin, who, as the name suggests, is a wizard of the highest caliber. She's really helpful to the Seven Deadly Sins since she can come up with a potion or a spell to solve almost any issue. She's also Escanor's love interest and, his reason to stay in the Seven Deadly Sins. Speaking of Escanor, he's the last member of the Seven Deadly Sins and is considered the strongest. He doesn't have any deep backstory. He's essentially the team's ace, taking down any insurmountable wall in their path. One of his greatest moments was fighting Estarossa without being affected by his commandment. Now, I saved the best for last, namely Meliodas, Elizabeth, and their relationship. I said before that Meliodas is a demon, but he's not just any demon. He's the eldest son of the Demon King. Most of his power was sealed away, and even then he was still powerful. However, it was only when he reclaimed his power and used his assault mode that he was truly unstoppable, defeating the strongest of the commandments without so much as breaking a sweat. Liz turns out to be a goddess powerful in healing magic and talk no jutsu. Yeah, she uses the legendary technique of talking. In all seriousness, being able to sway enemy hearts is an ability of hers that, frankly, is quite admirable. Also, her name can mean God is my oath, which I found pretty cool. So, her and Meliodas' relationship is depressing since he can't die and he's forced to live through Elizabeth's many reincarnations and cycles of life, but she dies in all of them, making Meliodas have to restart his relationship with her every time. The number of times he must have seen her die would break anyone, but he managed to persevere for so long. The amount of strength and courage that must have taken is unfathomable, but unfortunately he gave in and decided to join the demon's side. But not before reclaiming his place in the hierarchy. Now, let's talk about the villains for a bit here. Let's talk about Estarossa and Zeldris. I think these two come off as the coolest villains. Obviously, we have Zeldris, who is the youngest brother of the Demon King's family, and Estarossa is the middle child. Now, just like every middle child in all of history, he is not that important. I mean, the Demon King literally gave the younger brother, a bigger role, which is pretty messed up, if you ask me. Now, Estarossa's commandment is really cool because it makes someone not able to fight you if they have hate in their heart. Which, honestly, essentially makes him unstoppable, because if he's done anything to wrong you, you just can't fight back. Zeldris, on the other hand, has a strange commandment. It's not necessarily for fighting, it's more or less for, I guess, conquering. Essentially, if you turn your back on him, he is able to control you, I believe. That's the gist of what I understood. Now, you have other characters like that girl and that guy with no mouth. Sometimes he has a mouth and sometimes he doesn't. It's kind of weird, but it's not my place to decide. I think their relationship is pretty nice. I mean, it's your typical type of like guardian relationship, and then it turns out it's not, even though we thought it wasn't. It's weird. In the beginning, it feels like, they love each other, but it's then revealed that he's only her guardian or something like that, but then they love each other. I don't know. It's strange. It's a nice relationship, though. I mean, they did end up leaving the demon side and becoming neutral, I guess. I think all the other villains are not that consequential. I mean, you have the red armor guy. I completely forgot his name. Galland, I think. Galland of Truth or something. He lost way too quickly to Escanor. And speaking of Escanor, the snake lady, she should not have survived that sunblast or whatever. It's not cool. He should have taken two of them out. Would have been much better to the overall plot. All in all, I think those are all the villains worth mentioning. I mean, there are others, but they're not interesting. Now, I want to speak of the final season. I believe the final season was it season 3? I think, Wrath of the Gods. I'm not too sure on the season number, but it was called Wrath of the Gods. I know that one garnered a lot of criticism for its animation, and I want to be the first to say it looks exactly the same. I mean, the only difference I could find was the blood being censored with some white fluid. You know what's strange? It's censored, and then in the next episode, it's not. It's normal blood. It's quite strange. It's like they have a unwritten rule, I guess. If blood comes out of the mouth, it's okay. But if it's from your body, it's not. That's what I thought, but they don't even adhere by that rule. Sometimes the blood that comes out of the body is actual blood. And when we see limbs chopped off and they're red, they're not white. Sometimes they are white. It's strange. It's pretty stupid. Now, all in all, I did kind of criticize this heavily, but I was only nitpicking, I guess. I was only talking about everything anyone could actually say against the Seven Deadly Sins. I mean, I think it's a good show. I'd recommend everyone to watch it. Its fan service is a little bit on the heavy side, but I mean, you can just tune it out and it's pretty enjoyable. Most of the characters are fun to watch, I guess, and fun to be around. There are the odd few that are incredibly boring, incredibly stale, just completely repetitive. Got the goddamn pig. I don't know why it's there. Everything he can do, everyone else can do, and better. Except for eating food, like I said. I would have liked if in the first season, instead of the Seven Deadly Sins' name being cleared, I would have loved if they stayed evil, quote unquote, in the public eye. Because then it would have added the dynamic of having to, always be on the lookout, always having to look over your shoulder. Even though they're strong, but they'd still have to keep an eye out for any, I guess, knights coming their way. Now, for my final score out of 100, I'm going to be a little bit harsh and give it an 80, an 80%. It's got, like I said, great characters. The fights are pretty good. The story isn't slow. The pace is decent, I would say. But you also have some, downsides, such as the fan service. Like I said, it's a little bit, over the top. Certain characters don't add much to the story, which, I mean, I don't know if it's a design choice or if it's just bad writing. But I feel like some characters are not, their potential isn't fulfilled at all. I mean, you got King. King could have been an amazing character, but he's not. Again, I haven't seen, you know, the last season. I'm not caught up. I've only seen up until the end of Wrath of the Gods. Diane is an average character. She doesn't do anything too special. Ban is pretty cool. And then you got Big Boy Escanor. I think Escanor gets a lot of love, which is deserved, but at the same time, you know, let's not over hype him. I mean, he's a cool character and he's incredibly strong. I mean, he beat Estarossa and pushed back Zeldris with the same attack. I mean, that was a cool scene. But, you know, at the end of the day, his true power only comes at noon for 1 minute, when he becomes quote-unquote invincible. But even then, Meliodas took care of him with Assault Mode. Elizabeth is actually a really deep character, because she comes off as, you know, innocent, like we said before, but she turns out to be this goddess. You know, her main ability is in healing, and being able to, I guess, convince the enemies to stop fighting, and convince them of a better outcome, which is really good. I mean, she's a well-written character. So yeah, that's my current score. And if the last season, or the next couple of seasons, or I don't know how many seasons are left, you know, do any better in my eyes, then I will definitely consider raising that score. Because right now it just depends on the story and some of the characters. You never know. I mean, for all I know, King could be heavily focused on next season. But this is my score as of the end of Wrath of the Gods. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, and comment what anime, show, movie, game, anything, any review you want. I'll do it. It'll be fun. So yeah, I enjoy this type of content. Thank you, and peace.